Yeah. Why don't you make me a moderator? Tamika, too.
Hey everyone,
Hey, Tamika, how are you?
finding you. I think this is a closed room for some reason.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think this room is closed. I'm trying to see how
You,
we can share the room and let other visitors in. Hold on.
Well, okay.
Yes, I just did it.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I just happened to see the lock, and I'm trying to prep up to get ready to leave to go somewhere. And I'm like, wait a minute, I saw you open
Okay,
up the room for me, which was wonderful. And I said, wait, it's a closed room.
it's good. We're starting to get a few people in. Thank you
Yes.
for joining us, Evan.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
We've
Yeah, it
got a
sounds
lot
like
of
an
questions for you.
interesting business model you guys have, Evan. I'm looking forward looking forward to hearing more about it.
Awesome, and I'm glad to share, and also not afraid to share that this is my first Clubhouse ever. So
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm really looking forward to hearing about this information as well. I was just browsing you through your site, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about this information.
awesome, my pleasure.
So you want to give it another 2 more minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's wait till we get the critical mass. I think we're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Hey, Mike. How
Evan.
are you doing today?
Hey,
Yes,
Michael.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Is it raining in Miami Shores? Oh, we lost him. Evan, where are you from?
I'm actually from Broward County, born and raised in Coral Springs, and I reside in downtown Hollywood now at the Cirque Residences.
Oh, great.
How about yourself?
I was born in Detroit. Stephen, where were you born?
I was born at Mercy Hospital in beautiful Coconut Grove.
Wow.
How about that?
Tamika?
Born and raised in Miami, born at Mount Sinai on beautiful Miami Beach.
Amazing. I feel like the odd man out. I wasn't born in South
Wait a
Florida.
second, Tamika. You're a local like me. There's not many of
I
us.
know it's really not. So when people ask me, they're like, "You from Miami?" I'm like, "Yeah, from Miami, Miami." Like I'm born and raised here.
Same. I was born and raised in Coral Gables in Doctor's Hospital.
I know Michael wasn't.
No, I'm in Illinois, Midwestern, Alton, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, right by
We're
the
gonna
river.
forgive you. We're gonna let you stay in the group anyway, Michael.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Kevin and Eileen.
Good morning. Good morning. Been in South Florida for 5 years. My dad was military, so I was born in Maryland. Bounced around a little bit. I think that's probably a good thing for the character that it builds in our, professional community.
Yeah, you don't have a South Florida accent, Kevin.
No.
Sorry to point
No, he
that out.
doesn't.
I probably have a blend of Maryland and Massachusetts.
And I was born in Long Island, New York, but I've been here since I was 5 because my mom hated the cold. So, happy wife, happy life. So I've been in sunny South Florida since.
That
Awesome.
that qualifies for something, Eileen. That's good.
Yeah, she's been here since she was 5. So hey, she's a Floridian.
Evan, tell us a little bit about Zero Empty Spaces, about the concept and how it started.
Certainly. So I appreciate you guys having us on. Myself and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, are very passionate arts advocates, community builders, creative problem solvers, and creative entrepreneurs with marketing and advertising backgrounds. We also own and operate an agency and have been involved with the American Advertising Federation local chapter for quite a while. And we were doing an art fair called Art Fort Lauderdale that actually has a heavy real estate component as well. It was based in luxury waterfront homes off of the Las Olas intercoastal waterways that were for sale, made only accessible via boat. So we'd partner with brokers, Douglas Elliman, Sotheby's, Florida Luxurious, and it was a glorified open house showcase. So after doing that for a few years, we were receiving and fielding a lot of inquiries from the artists who were asking us for more either exhibition opportunities or studio space opportunities, which are tough to come by even in Miami and outside of Miami. And then we were continually approached by developers, property managers, brokers alike, who would ask us to do art in their commercial spaces. And my business partner's background, in part, was in shopping center retail development. He had been an executive with the Westfield Corporation. He had consulted on a bunch of residential and commercial real estate development from the 90s all the way on up. So he had experience developing what we call vacancy management strategies and solutions. Most notably was taking an underutilized space of the food court at Westfield Broward Mall, where he had been a marketing director, and purposing it as a commission-free art gallery, which drove traffic, press, buzz, interest to a dark corner of the mall. And we were leaving a meeting actually right around Westfield Broward, and we were driving through Broward Boulevard, and we were looking at all of the unfortunate vacant commercial real estate and retail spaces. And while we know Broward County is unfortunately one of the least affordable counties for housing, or maybe fortunately for your guys' sake, we thought to ourselves, what if we could make it one of the most affordable places for artists to be able to create at outside of their home? The options are honestly few and far between, especially in Broward County, and really even in Miami, it's only a few spaces. They're generally nonprofits. They're generally heavily juried, and generally have a really long wait list. Some people never even get the phone call to get in there. So we put back on our art advocacy hat, and we put on our vacancy management and marketing hat, and we came up with this initiative to activate vacant commercial retail spaces and other vacant CRE spaces on a month-to-month basis until spaces get a full-time permanent lease, and we assume all the liability for the water, the electric. We provide our own COI. We make improvements and upgrades as necessary, bring places up to code, and we guarantee to property owners and property managers that will keep the space open and active daily to support the walkability of their centers. And that's kind of how we started Zero Empty Spaces.
Now, Evan, is it fair to assume that you and your partner are licensed real estate agents?
I was many years ago with Boca Executive, and I was on the Miami board. I got out of it, and I am in the process of getting back into it. I'm not currently licensed, but I was previously.
So Evan, it sounds like a very interesting and really an altruistic kind of endeavor that you guys are embarking on or have embarked on, which is great. So when you do one of these leases, your entity is the tenant, and then you essentially sublease it or jointly lease it with the artist tenant. How does that work?
Correct. Yes. So we take spaces on a $0 month-to-month lease, assuming all of the liability for the utilities as I outlined and the insurance. Some property owners give us a little bit longer runway, and as we expand to other markets, we're actually starting to get 3, 6-month, and 12-month commitments from property owners, and we can get into some of the use cases there with certain types of developments. But we take the lease. We serve as one point of contact with the property owner, property manager, and then we do our diligence to sublease the spaces out to the artist. Each artist has an individual month-to-month lease, and then we effectively take care of everything from installing lighting, to the scheduling, to the marketing, to the public relations and the press. And since we have an agency and a lot of agency experience, it allows us to be a lot more nimble. It allows us to operate a lot more effectively. We don't have to pay, a public relations agency to generate all the press that we've been able to generate, or we don't have to pay a marketing or a social media agency to help us with those regards. And since we're not a nonprofit corporation, we are able to move pretty quickly when we decide to make a decision. We don't have to report to a board. Andrew and myself are the two partners. So if we're presented a property, we do a site survey, we evaluate it, and we determine that it is a suitable property, not too much to bring it up to code and to activate it, we can move forward fairly quickly, generally getting it up and running within just a few weeks.
So what is your criteria like to assess the potential of a particular property that would be brought to you?
It's actually generally probably not what most people think. We don't we started our first location was on Las Olas at an $86 a square foot great location, and they don't all have to be on Main Street or on Las Olas, and they don't have to be white box vanilla spaces. Ideally, spaces that do already have some lighting. They do have to have floors, so they can't it can't be a completely raw space. Like I said, we're willing to make upgrades and improvements and bring places up to code up to a certain extent. So we will add lighting, we will add fire exit signs if needed. We will add, a toilet. We can't fix, broken pipes, but we'll address some, maybe plumbing issues. We'll add a slot sink if necessary. Preferably spaces that have some dividers or some division existing is a preference, as that minimizes the need for extensive build out. We've developed a pretty effective and pretty cost effective IKEA type of solution for creating temporary divider walls that we're able to easily adhere and then remove from walls with minimal damage, that we've gotten down to about maybe $65 for a 4x8 wall. And that essentially allows us to delineate the space to take, for example, a 1,000 square foot space and make 10 100 square foot spaces by adding these divider walls, so the artist knows this is space number 1, this is space number 2. And then of course there's common area and walkways, and of course they're all ADA compliant. So preferably some division, but most of the spaces that we get are generally nowadays vanilla shells in lifestyle centers or street level retail. But we've been in every cross section of commercial real estate now, including inline malls and industrial warehouse as well.
Tell us a little bit about some of the developers and landlords that you're working with. Hopefully they're success stories.
Yeah, of course. We've worked with some of the largest in the world and in the company. Obviously, I'm sure you guys know Simon and Westfield. We work with small independent mom and pops, people that have literally had this portfolio for 80 years, some of which they're just kind of sitting on, waiting to eventually sell, and property wasn't really doing anything for them. These have a lot of times been initiated by city commissioners and mayors or community redevelopment agencies that know our work and know the work that we do in the community, that initiate the conversation with obviously these developers and property groups being huge taxpayers. A lot of times they go to the city commissioners and mayors and say, hey, what can you do for my vacant space? And then they turn to us and provide us as a solution, and we try to work it out. But we've worked with, aside from Simon and Westfield, Colliers, Madison Marquette, Edens. We have multiple properties with Styles up in Palm Beach County. We work with Crocker Partners and are doing another project with them at the BRIC, the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, for IBM headquarters, Thor Equities. And then smaller groups. Not that the Las Olas company is a small group, but a smaller, maybe family-owned company like that.
Incidentally, I grew up in Detroit, but I moved to Indianapolis, and one time it wasn't a very big party, but the Simons, because they're from Indianapolis, they own the Pacers. They had a party that I somehow got invited to. It was it was very fun. It was a nice party. It was a wholesome Midwest party, so I don't have any crazy stories. I have a few other questions, but we have a good group of people here up on the stage. If anyone else has any questions to Mika or Chairman Jennifer or Michael or uh, either Jennifer or Kevin.
Well, I have a quick question. And what counties are you guys focusing in? Are you just in the Broward County area, or have you expanded over to the Dade County area and eventually expand throughout the state?
I I apologize. I had a. Can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
Yeah, you were buzzing there for a
I
second.
had
Yeah,
a
It
phone
was
call
such a
come
good
in
question that
and I
you
cut
started buzzing.
out. You were asking about expansion plans within the state?
yeah, within the state, because I see. I was looking on your website. That a lot of your locations are in the Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale, Los Olas area.
Yes. So we do have one location in Sarasota. That was our first venture outside of South Florida, which is going well. And then we are actually traveling on Monday to Jacksonville to meet with the director of Colliers up there, who's going to tour us around some properties. One of their clients, one of their developers, took interest in the initiative and actually engaged us uh, to make a trip up there, and they are open to our request for a minimum of a 6 month commitment to establish a new market before going to month until the property is fully permanently leased. So we are very excited to go to Jacksonville, and we did make one trip to the Chicago area to Northbrook, Illinois, to meet with Brookfield, and they did offer us a space. It would obviously be a completely different market for us. We factored in a lot of things we don't have to factor in here, how the snow impacts commuting and people's willingness to get outside the house and paying for increased expenses like salt and heat and stuff like that. So we decided at that time not to go to Northbrook, Illinois and Chicago, but we are going to consider, as we hopefully continue easing out of this COVID era, expanding into other states outside of Florida. And thankfully, as a result of some social media posts by our dear friend Beth Azor, we did get, who's, I'm sure you guys know, a significant broker and developer and shopping center owner in her own regard.
Definitely.
We got interest from all over the country when she gave us some posts when we partnered together one time. So the interest is there. This is still just a two-man operation, Andrew and myself as the owners and operators. And because we operated at the nonprofit prices of $2 a square foot to the artist, unfortunately, that kind of inhibits our ability to grow and scale and hire a team. But we're hoping eventually we do get acquired by a large property group that could provide some additional resources to help facilitate the expansion.
Danny has some bitcoins that are burning in his pocket. Maybe he'll buy you out. Danny, you
Hey,
want to?
Yes, I
Hey,
know
this
he
is
has some
Eileen.
bitcoins.
I got a question for Evan. Evan, I saw on your website, Miami International Mall, that you have some spaces available there. Are those still available?
they are.
Can you tell us a little bit about like where they're located in the Miami International Mall? Is there any type of visibility to the shoppers? Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So that's our first inline mall location. That's our first location, a pilot with Simon. It is directly next to Kohl's. It's unit 894. Um, so it is in the Miami International Mall in Doral. We took a former Payless shoe store
and very interestingly, we utilize existing racks and rows to create some division in the space to create the individualized studios. We added some of the divider walls as well, but it's about a 4,800 square foot space. There's about 14 studios, and they range from about 96 square feet up to 231 square feet. All of the spaces are for the artists are $2 a square foot on a month-to-month basis, including the water and the electric. And that is the only location I would just mention that the artists don't have 24-hour access because it is an inline mall. But there is availability, and there's been some great projects and collaborations that have come out of that location, including murals at History Miami Museum, the Government Center, and even up in Tallahassee at the state capitol. So we're really excited. That's our only space in Miami at the moment, and we're hoping we can add some more in the future.
Andy, thanks for joining us. Did you have any questions, Andy?
Hey, Paul. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Tamika. Hi, Michael. Hi,
Hi.
Kevin. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Craig. And for everybody else, hi. Yeah, Evan. So I'm listening a little bit, but I know that you're new. So welcome to Clubhouse. And I wanted to know if you have a website or another way that we can see more information about yourself and your company.
Sure. I would encourage you guys to go to our social media on Instagram, Facebook. I would also encourage you can find all of our you can find all of our press on our website, but you can find more like images of what goes on in the studio, some behind the scenes stuff. If you go to our YouTube page, you can find all of our grand opening reception videos showing the spaces open and activated, which is something I did want to mention as another added value to the property owners, brokers, developers. We provide high resolution and high production quality video and photo recaps of the space, showing the space activated, in addition to generating press and driving traffic virtually, as digitally as well as physically, with shoppers in the centers. And these are all things that we provide at no charge, as part of the obviously lease agreement and partnership with the owners and developers. It's some of the value that we create and provide for our partners, and we estimate a lot of these centers unfortunately have dropped their PR firms, which generally costs them about $3,000 a month for a retainer. So by us generating press, especially to a door that was previously and recently closed, we estimate we provide anywhere from maybe $12,000 to $30,000 annually in value between the press, the high res photos and videos, the activation, the collaboration, the supporting the walkability and supporting keeping shoppers in these developments and shopping centers longer, to our partners. And you can find examples of this, as I mentioned, on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube page, and on our website as well.
Can you provide the handle for that? Because obviously you haven't finished your profile, so it'll be a little easier if you can repeat the handles for your company.
Yes, they're all at zero empty spaces spelled out, and zero is ZERO, empty spaces.
Including the website. Zero.
And the website is www.zeroemptyspaces.com. And I also encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn as well, where we provide more of our real estate and business related updates on there.
We probably have at least 80 years of office and retail space just up on this stage right now. Steve, I know that you have a long history in office and retail, and you worked at Daytran. What do you think of this concept of Evan, and do you have any additional questions?
Oh, yeah. I had a couple of questions for you. I know that over the years, a lot of the office buildings on Brickell or in like major, bigger buildings have often provided lobby space to artists so they could basically have a gallery in the lobbies of their different of the property. So the drawings or the paintings or the sculpture or whatever could have a place to live, and then the tenants of the 20, 30, 40-story buildings would have the opportunity to basically view the different art as it sits in the lobby on a rotating basis. Have you gotten involved in any of that, Evan? And as another question, have you integrated with the Building Owners and Managers Association, BOMA, or the Institute of Real Estate Management for an entree into that type of thing?
Great questions. The latter question, I have reached out to BOMA, I have reached out to CCIM, and I have reached out to some of the other related groups. We haven't joined yet. Maybe that might be part of the reason why I haven't heard back, but I'm certainly open to paying the fee and would be glad to take any recommendation or introduction to connect with the appropriate personnel at those respective organizations, as I think those would be great, or we would be a great resource for their members, and it would be great to obviously join them and share this information with them. Regarding and I appreciate you bringing that up, and I'm glad to speak to anybody about this. I plan on doing this for the rest of my life, so no bad time to make that connection. As for the first question, yes, we do have an ongoing and rotating quarterly exhibit at the largest, I believe it's the largest office site in the state, at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, the former IBM headquarters in Boca Raton, with Crocker Partners. We take a corridor and we do an exhibit that changes out every couple months with a different theme, and that is to give their employees or their tenants' employees something obviously to see as they walk through the hallways and the corridors of this massive building. And then we do an opening reception. We do some events. We're going to start doing some coffee talks with their coffee shop there and bringing the artists in to speak about the work a little bit more. I would just mention what is a little bit different with this activation versus what you were kind of referring to with the traditional, or with the example of office lobbies making space available for exhibition space or for displaying artwork. What we try to do is, we're, as arts advocates, more focused on providing the space for artists to be able to create and collaborate in outside of their home, which those opportunities are few and far between, as I mentioned, especially outside of Miami. We actually do not take a commission on artwork that sells out of those spaces because it is their studio and they are paying us the $2 a square foot rent to create there. We are certainly glad to work with office buildings and different uses of commercial real estate for exhibition space to help fill those lobbies. We actually have a art leasing component where an office building is actually able to take artwork on consignment, paying a small percentage of the value of the artwork on a monthly or quarterly rotating basis with the option to purchase it. And that's something I'd be glad to speak with anybody with as well if they're looking to enhance their lobby or their office or their building. But our focus is more taking the vacant commercial real estate to provide the space for artists to create in, and then exhibition opportunities kind of come from there. But we are open to all of the above.
So that's interesting. We're actually having a little shameless self promotion here. We're having a joint event, the Miami Commercial, together with CCIM and IREM, which is the Institute of Real Estate Management, on November 2nd at Top Golf Doral. If you'd like to to join us there, Evan, that would be interesting. You would meet a lot of people who I'm sure would like to hear more about what you guys offer, and probably have some empty spaces you could fill. So we'll send you an email on that.
I'm glad to join for everything and anything, and I certainly appreciate the invitation and the consideration.
Welcome. I just want to welcome 2022 Chairman Fernando Arancibia, and also Matthew. I know Kevin, it seems like he has a question, but I wanted to recognize our incoming chairman, Kevin, and then it looks like Matthew. Welcome, Matthew. Kevin, you have something?
Oh, I was just gonna ask Evan if he's also up for skeet shooting, since you said you're open to anything, and Steven dropped that. We literally have a skeet shooting network that same week, Evan. So we'll see you at both that and Doral.
I've always wanted to try it, and I appreciate that. Let's do it.
Hey, Evan, this is Jennifer Forbes. I have a question for you. First of all, I think this is a great win-win scenario for both a landlord and for uprising artists in the community. So great job in putting this together and curating these spaces. Um, I had a question about the managing of the expectations of the quality of the artist, if you will, and how you go about selecting. I don't know if you have a criteria, but if you could share that with us. And I had another question with regards to insurance and liability, because that does come up with landlords. And I'm sure you have your own liability policy, but what's expected of the artists themselves?
Good question. We do, and we actually sought out a broker that specializes in retail insurance, and we do have each location added on a location by location basis, to make sure that we do have proper coverage in the event that, God forbid, that something does happen. The artists do have, so we provide a general liability COI. The artists have the ability to insure their artwork if they want to. Some of them do. Insuring artwork, unfortunately, is very expensive and tends to actually be way more expensive than the general liability insurance. But that is the situation with the insurance, and I'm glad to discuss that further afterwards or offline. The first part of your question, we do have an application and a jury criteria. We ask artists to submit their portfolio, to submit their website, to submit examples of their work. We only allow certain mediums because, obviously, of zoning of retail and commercial real estate spaces. We allow acrylic painting, oil painting, mixed media, assemblage, collage. We unfortunately don't allow metalwork, anything with flame,
I can do
spray.
finger painting. What about finger?
Finger painting is allowed,
Listen,
and
it's in
welcome.
the eye of the beholder.
You'd be amazed, or maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't be amazed, but we're not as heavy on the jury criteria as our contemporaries and peers that um, are more seeking artists that have long, extensive CVs and resumes that literally have to be established and have been exhibited. We're actually kind of glad to reward deserving artists with the opportunities. And the best example I could give you in closing the answer to this question is some of our best success stories are artists that are grandparents that have been painting at home for 30, 40, 50 years that never were able to call or never called themselves an artist because they never exhibited outside the home. It was just a hobby for them. And multiple times over, their family member or spouse saw an article in the newspaper, shared the concept with them. They joined one of our studio spaces, and now they are amongst their contemporaries and their peers They're able to call themselves artists. So although they don't have the extensive CV and resume like some of their other contemporaries and peers, they're still able to collaborate. And as long as they're able to show us some examples of their work and what they will be working on, we're glad to have them. And that's one of the things we're probably the proudest. We're very big on inclusion.
Great. And
Okay.
is there a minimum requirement as far as a commitment for time?
Yes, very good question. Since we do require the spaces to be open and activated daily between the hours of 12 and 5 p.m., which we generally make as the hours that we're open to the public, the artists are required to be in the space at least 1 to 2 days per week, depending how many artists are in their location. And we do require the artists to be working on a minimum of at least one piece of artwork per month. Essentially, we want to make sure we're fulfilling our requirement to the property owners and landlords that the space will be open and activated, and B, we want to ensure that the artists are making the proper use of the space as intended and as advertised. We don't want somebody that thinks they're going to get a cheap gallery space, put up some artwork and a business card and hope for the best, and then have the requirements for keeping the space open and activated fall on the shoulders of the artists that take the opportunity seriously, which we do. So we actually have a HR scheduling and check-in application, and the check-in application is actually geo-fenced with GPS, so they can only check in if they're actually at the space. To ensure that the space is, once again, being open and activated daily.
Cool, cool. And does each artist have to have their own POS, or are you setting up a centralized POS system in the
We
space?
are, since we are not responsible or involved in their individual sales, they do facilitate their own sales. They do have their own POS. We facilitate commissions and we do some artist representation, but the purpose or the intent of this initiative is to provide the space for artists to create in, not so much focused on the sales, and obviously then we would have to get involved with deducting credit card processing fees and additional expenses for additional things. So we let the artists handle their POS systems individually.
Fernando, did you have something you wanted to add, or Chairman, almost Chairman, current Chairman-elect of Miami Realtors? What do you have for us, Fernando?
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Paul, for the welcome. Very happy to be here. I have a question and then a follow-up comment. Evan, is there a minimum timeline as far as the lease that you're looking for, or how long a minimum amount of time that you're looking to occupy the space from the landlord?
Yes. So locally in the markets that we're already established in, all we can ask for is a month-to-month lease with a 30-day notice to vacate once they have a permanent tenant. We do have some partners. Madison Marquette in Gulfstream Park just gave us another year. They like the program. I don't know if you're familiar with Gulfstream Park, but they have quite a bit of vacancy there, and they've seen the benefit of the program driving traffic and press. So all we could ask for is month to month. When we're establishing new markets, we're asking for a 6-month commitment before going month to month, and then when we add new locations to those new markets, we're asking for a 3-month commitment before going month to month, just because we obviously now have increased travel expenses and some other additional expenses establishing marketing and advertising in new markets. To let the community and artists know about the initiative is an additional expense versus the markets that we're already established in, where artists do know about the program. So locally, month to month, at a minimum. If they wish to give us longer, obviously we're open to it. And then new markets, 6 months, and then adding locations once we're established in those new markets, 3 months. And I know you guys might obviously be saying to yourself, why would they do that? Who would do that? Or, whatever the case may be. We only do this with people that, want to do this. We've actually not done any outreach to property owners specifically, because the few time or since we started. When we started, the responses were, "Oh, I'm not really interested in doing that." But when property owners or developers or a mayor or a city commissioner reaches out to us to do it, obviously the conversation's a lot warmer. They see the value in the program and the activation and the press and all the benefits that it does in supporting the walkability and the viability of shopping centers. So we work with people that want to work with us, and I say we go places that were appreciated and not just places that were tolerated.
I
That
saw.
makes a lot of sense. I look at this and I wanted to share an experience that I had with a client of mine. We had this piece of retail in a building that really was only mixed use because it had basically a 1,000 square foot retail space on the ground floor, and the other 3 floors were all multifamily. And there was a tenant there before who had very poorly activated the space, and the tenant leaves. My client cleans up the space. He's looking to lease it, and then COVID hits, and of course now we're in this situation in which it's going to take a long time for us to lease out the space. Additionally, the problem was that people could not really envision how to activate the space because there wasn't, a lot of parking, excess parking. It wasn't a very busy street. It was going to give a lot of exposure, and so we had relationships with some artists, my client specifically, and we thought of the idea of doing basically like a 6 month um, a period of time in which the artist can move in and kind of do a residency. And this artist came in and brought in 4 other artists, and they shared the space and they activated the space. And for that 6 month period, especially towards the end, the last 2 to 3 months, people started to call in about the space. It was still advertised, and it's almost like they can envision it. And I almost related akin to in the residential world, people, will take an empty, building or an empty home, and then they will stage it, right? And the staging does a lot to give people the vision, the visual of what the space could be. And what I love about this is that there is that dynamic of number one, you're activating the space, you're giving artists that opportunity, you're giving them that setup, but you're also allowing for the public and the potential future tenant of the space to visualize what that space could be and to kind of overcome whatever objections are there. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and I've seen it on a small scale when you're talking about a small, 3-story building that has, especially those spaces that are really kind of in betweeners.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great opportunity for that. So I just wanted to say that, but thank you for being here and presenting to us as well.
Thank you very much. If I could just, I think somebody asked, and I don't think I added the answer about a success story. The best one that comes to mind, our first location on Las Olas. Reach out to our friend Mayor Dean Trentellis. He connected us with Mike Weymouth, the owner of Las Olas Company. They, as you guys might be aware, have previously struggled with chronic vacancy with the high price per square foot, and we took a space that had been vacant for 2 years, and we were in there for 3 months. Somebody came in, said they liked the buzz and energy in the space, and signed a permanent lease. They then transitioned us over to the 888 corner of Las Olas, the former Levinson Jeweler space, which, if any of you guys are familiar after the Scott Rothstein situation, it had been vacant for 5 years. And we were in that space for 3 months, and they were able to sign a permanent lease at I believe, $86 a square for a 5,000 square foot space for a place that literally had been sitting there vacant for 5 years. And yes, it is unfortunate for the artists, but it is fully transparent with everybody, the artists, the property owners, the community, that these spaces are month to month until they do get permanently leased. And then at which point, now that we've opened 22 of these over the last 2.5 years, we work to transition the artist to the next available space, depending on what we have available when that lease notification comes. And hopefully, by working more strategically with you guys and maybe some of your clients and partners, we can make more space available to provide all of the benefits that we've outlined, supporting the walkability of centers, supporting the community, just providing a more positive space for collaboration and people to discover artists, commission artists, and all the benefits of the creative economy. So that's a great success story that I like to share.
So, Matthew, do you have any comments? Matthew's an old colleague of mine from the self-storage industry, and I was thinking maybe you had some thoughts on this concept, Matt Van Horn.
No, thanks, Steve. No, I'm listening really intently right now. It's not something, obviously, in self-storage that we've had to kind of worry about in terms of having office space filled or anything. Some have mixed use, but most are just regular storage. Obviously, obtaining as many customers as we can, regardless of where they come from, is good for us. But I'm just really interested in this and new ways to maybe even convert or use older office space that's not being used.
Tamika, this makes me think of our recent city spotlight on Lauderhill. You introduced the mayor at that session about all the creative arts that they're trying to build in that community. And we had the commissioner, the city manager, the head of the EDC. As I mentioned, you introduced the mayor. There's a lot of cities. Miami Gardens is another one that's reached out to us. We've done a lot of meeting with their city officials and screening their candidates that really are trying to build their arts community. North Miami is another one as well. So there's a lot of communities here in South Florida that are really ripe for this kind of energy.
And Paul, not only those communities, I was reading yesterday, I think, that Steve Patel from Terra Nova has bought more buildings on Miracle Mile and Coral Gables. And it seems like there's a long-term plan for redeveloping Miracle Mile, but in the short run, Evan, that could be a wonderful place for you guys to go during the time that the permitting phase is ongoing in some of
Correct.
these buildings. Have you
Mhm.
integrated with and contacted Terra Nova and Steve Battelle as a short-term answer to any of?
um, right at the beginning of COVID, we were speaking with the marketing director, and it's on the internet that they did attempt to do the concept on their own. I have not seen anything since their initial attempt. We also spoke with the city of Miami Beach, who also subsequently attempted to do it on their own, and I believe they were able to launch it successfully. It is it's a great idea, and we don't own the IP of the concept, and we weren't the first people to do this. This concept exists. Obviously, a company like Terra Nova has the ability to do it on their own, but since we don't charge them anything, and they would have to pay the utilities and the water and the electric and the upkeep of the space, it would behoove them not to partner with a company like Zero Empty Spaces, who would literally take those line items off of the P&L, provide the press at no charge and the traffic at no charge. So I'd be glad to revisit the conversation with Terra Nova, and if you'd like to connect us with Mr. Patel, I'd be glad to speak with him as well. But that conversation was, I believe, right at the beginning of, or maybe even just right before COVID, and then we did not hear back from them after that.
You have the experience and the expertise. So instead of somebody coming along and trying to quote unquote reinvent the wheel, you've already done that, and so you add that kind of value. Clarence, welcome up on the stage.
To have the
Did you have something, Clarence?
Yeah, no, just enjoying the conversation. Thanks for bringing me up. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think any asset class has potential for for the traffic is interesting. I think you guys talked about mixed use, so immediately came to mind. It's kind of ground floor retail in a multi-story apartment building, even something like that, high street. But yeah, that's all I want to kind of add. And then maybe even kind of those, kind of alternative type asset classes, kind of more artsy beer garden type things. So yeah, that's just kind of my 2 cents. But enjoying the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, we've seen some of those concepts out there. Anyone, Michael, did you have something?
Hey guys, how y'all doing today? Michael Henson here with Apex. Just a couple of things. Evan, as you were saying, it's not necessarily a new model, and I would say and bring up that Javier's niece, many of you know Javier, his niece worked at AS220 up in Providence, Rhode Island, which started back in 1985, and they took a defunct warehouse that was functionally obsolete, and they did the same thing. They put an education model piece into it that the artists had to do some sort of education and marketing classes to be able to sell their artwork in exchange for part of the free rent. And they started off with one building, and they've got 4 buildings now, 4 warehouses. They have a restaurant and a performing arts studio, and that's grown over 20 years and really, really helped revitalize downtown Providence, Rhode Island. And we all know what happened with Wynwood. When you put great artwork up, it brings foot traffic. So I guess, it's we as a culture and a society, we have to acknowledge that artists are so important, and to give them a venue to display their works and benefit the landlord. I mean, it's really a win-win. So, Evan, do you have any background on, like, what kind of money is spent in these locations as far as the impact and the foot traffic to the nearby stores and that kind of thing? That might make it a little more appealing to Mr. Patel and some of these other people that you've been talking to.
Yes, great question and great point. I'm going to address the point second, that there is significant economic impact. One of the best examples that we reference is the neighboring ice cream store, the neighboring coffee shop, the neighboring restaurant, the neighboring boutique. When a shopper comes to a center, a lifestyle center, inline retail, whatever the center might be, and they either visit our location first or maybe they visit that coffee shop first, we have successfully proven time and time again to be able to retain shoppers in centers longer. And obviously, the mall people love those facts. We've worked on collaborations with neighboring tenants. We have an artist in our Gulfstream Park location that's working with the West Elm in the village of Gulfstream Park, and we're continually working with more furniture companies, interior designers as a resource to provide an additional option for an opportunity to support a local artist, but B, an opportunity to enhance or embellish whatever they're considering purchasing from a West Elm, Crate and Barrel, whoever the retailer is. And we are actively involved in multiple economic development conversations with, we just actually got a partnership today with the city of Doral to offer discounts through their website and our website for commission artworks as another initiative to drive traffic and economic development. We're also very involved in conversations regarding the creative economy and host panel discussions annually before COVID and plan to resume, highlighting the specific benefits and impacts of, just for a brief example's sake, when you support a local artist, that allows them to take those funds, support meaning if you purchase a piece of artwork from them, and support comes in various different fashions, but when you buy a piece of artwork from a local artist, they're able to in turn go to the local art supply company, Jerry's, Blick, Michael, whatever that case may be, which allows them to continue evolving and growing and staying in business as part of the creative economy. And there's other subsequent benefits. Once again, when people go out to an art opening, they take an Uber, they park their car, they have dinner, they have drinks, they pay a babysitter. So there's tons of benefits in that regard. And just the other point that you brought up with the permanent spaces, that is the goal, and that is something that we are certainly open to. It really just takes the right developer and ultimately somebody that's more philanthropic or altruistic, as somebody mentioned earlier, as we are, that would see the value for the community, see the value for their larger development or for their portfolio or for their area, and want to dedicate a space permanently or on a long-term basis to be an art center. The Anheuser-Busch distributor in Orlando donated the oldest historic building in downtown Orlando to City Arts to be deeded for 50 years as an art space, and that's been wildly successful. And I'm sure, obviously, all of you guys know about Wynwood by now, but my partner was doing the marketing for Tony Cho and Metro One back in the day, and shared office space with him, participated in the growth and expansion of Wynwood, and we all know the benefits and outcomes of that, and Little River. And my partner was actually also one of the first tenants in Doug McGraw's Fat Village Arts District in Fort Lauderdale in the Flagler Village Civic Association, which he bought many, many moons ago, I believe, for 1.5 million 20 years ago, and he just sold for 57 million to Hines last week to do a mixed-use development. So there is precedent for these long-term plays by using arts to enhance communities and make a place like Wynwood or Little River more desirable. Our current approach does it without having to gentrify anybody because these are obviously shorter term scenarios. But we are certainly open and welcome to speaking to any developer or family office on the potential of doing a long-term permanent space, which we would gladly create a nonprofit and the infrastructure to support and handle that type of scenario.
Is there anyone in the lower half here in the so-called cheap seats that hasn't been on the stage that would like to contribute with a question? I see someone now that I say that. Let's bring up Robert.
Hey, Paul, I do have a question for Evan, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So Evan, as I absolutely love, helping out artists. My mom was an artist her whole life, and one of the issues that she had in Miami was finding a space. So for me, this kind of comes close to home. However, my question to you is, knowing that the spaces are being quote unquote leased out to you, right? And in a sense, in your website, it states that the spaces are open and any potential tenants. Oh, did we lose him?
We might have. I know Robert wanted to speak, so I'm trying to invite him up.
Oh, there's Evan. He's back. Andy, you can
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Andy. Start over,
Oh,
please.
I wasn't sure if what part he lost. Evan, are you still there?
He's on mute.
Yeah. Just want to make sure you're listening so that I
Okay,
don't have to.
yes, it cut off where you said you were looking at our website. I apologize about that.
No, that's okay. So in essence, it's stating that any potential tenant can come and look at the space. How are you protecting the agents, right, that are in essence representing these landlords from going around us from that potential tenantship? Because if we're not there, obviously these tenants are coming into the space. We want to make sure that if landlords are having it done, that we're in essence also protected too.
I'm going to ask you just to maybe further clarify in terms of the representative of the landlord getting the
Yeah,
commission.
if a broker, yeah, if a broker is representing the land and making sure that you're cooperating and not circumventing that situation.
Correct. Well, as I mentioned, I currently am not a licensed agent, and I obviously value the relationship that we have with the broker that we work with at the respective properties and funnel any interest in leads and interested prospective tenants to them. It is a part of the process that the space will get leased. It's fully transparent to everybody that that will inevitably obviously happen as a cycle of life. And we want to continue operating the program. We are very big on integrity and authenticity and keeping a positive reputation. So we have not had that situation present itself. Um,
I'm
but I
an
would.
outside of the box thinker. That's why I ask all these questions, because I like to be a devil's advocate. So,
I'll
but
tell. Let me
I
give you
love the.
just on the flip side of that coin. We have had brokers get leases from the that were representing the landlord that were not prospective tenants of theirs that came in to the space, to the studio, found it interesting, contacted us. We connected them with the broker representing the landlord, the owner, and they obtained the commission without. I guess that's like the flip side of that coin. But have not had it. We have not had anybody circumvent the commission situation, thankfully.
That's awesome. Um,
That's
Robert, we would
would
love to. I just want to make sure we get Robert in here because he's been waiting patiently. Robert, would you like to unmute? You're welcome to unmute Robert. We'd love to hear from you. Robert Palacios is a longtime
Can you
member. Yeah.
can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Steve,
Sure.
Tamika, thank you so much for organizing this. Evan, great program that you've put together. Can you share with us in the spaces that you take, are you able to contribute toward operating expenses, property operating expenses?
So we do contribute. So we do assume the liability for the water and the electric and trash when applicable. We do not. We do not contribute to CAM. And just the fully transparent fact of the matter is, the $2 per square foot that we derive from the artist, we're not able to lease the whole entire square footage of the space because obviously we have to have walkways and divider walls and so on and so forth. So for us to be able to just, you know, do a little better than break even and allow us to continue marketing and having our overhead and expenses, that's the extent of which we're able to contribute. We have explored longer term, not a permanent, but maybe a 1 or a 5 year lease scenario where we've been asked to pay or contribute towards property taxes. And we're open to considering that. But at the moment, we do not pay CAM or any of the additional operating expenses, if that answers that question.
It does. And then the second part is, can you share with us your contact information, email, phone, rank, and serial number?
Sure. It's Evan, EVAN, for email at zero empty spaces.com, all spelled out. If you want to take down my phone number, I'm glad to speak with you. My number is 954-242-0655. I'll try to drop it in the chat if I don't press too many buttons, considering this is my first time on Clubhouse. And I'm glad to have you guys share my contact info. I'm an open book, and if you connect with me on LinkedIn or social media, you'll see I'm involved in some other interesting altruistic community-based projects. I'm glad to answer any questions, discuss things at your convenience, and try to add value to your association, your clients, and your respective communities as well.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna. I think just remind everyone it's zero spelled out, zero empty spaces. I think Tamika can pop in here and she's does an amazing job of starting these and helping us and also helping end these conversations. Unless there's, do you want to see if there's anything else, Tamika? I know you're driving,
Yeah.
but you could you could do this with us.
Yes, this is a very great topic today. Thank you so much, Evan. Does anyone else have any more questions or comments or anything? Would you like? And if anyone didn't catch Evan's phone number, please let us know, and he can give it to you again.
Shane, did
Well,
you have something to mention? We put you up on stage.
Hi, Shane.
Evan, I'm sorry I missed
uh
all
oh,
Uh oh,
this.
you
I've
missed.
been at
You're in the
he's
Matrix.
breakfast, but
yeah.
I was just
Shane, we're gonna have to
curious.
probably
I'm
mute you.
trying
We
to do
can't
some
we can't
homework
make
on
out what
this.
you're saying.
Can you not that spot?
He started happy hour early.
Yeah, your bad spot.
Any
Maybe you
better,
can pop
guys,
back.
or no?
Yeah, that's
That's a
better.
little better. Yeah.
Okay, Evan. Just wanted to know. I'm gonna look into more of this because it's interesting to me. And if you maybe you can back channel me the, kind of the what you're talking to someone there offline about. But did you guys take um, inspiration on this from other places around the country? Did you collaborate with anybody on some of the information? I might have missed that part earlier. I just wanted to know.
I didn't. Yeah, good question. I didn't mention them specifically, but if any of you guys know the art scene in Miami, it's not a terrible mystery. There's the Bakehouse Art Complex in Wynwood, which was there. I think it's there 30 plus years now. We took the inspiration from them at the $2 a square foot model that we rented to the artist. That is nonprofit pricing, and we're not a nonprofit, and we're definitely not as funded as the Bakehouse. If you've ever been there and you've seen the walls of contributors, they've raised millions of dollars and are actually about to start building residential on top of their um, studio space. And then there is a model in New York City that only operates in New York City. It's called Chashama, and once again, nonprofit, and their board is like Rockefeller, the queen of New York City real estate, Barbara Corcoran, and they're getting like brownstones and former army barracks donated to them. Um, we're not there yet, but we do take inspirations from some other places, and we that's what helped us arrive at the $2 per square foot model. And there's other places I've discovered on my travels, and Torpedo Factory in Virginia, curated storefronts in Ohio. So the concept, we didn't come up with it, but the vacancy management part of making the studio spaces, especially in the different cross sections of commercial real estate and retail that we've been involved in. My partner, having extensive background as an executive with the Westfield Corporation, is very excited to continue moving forward. And this was something, just to close that point and to make sure we illustrate, this was something we started and was already a good idea before COVID, when there was 90 million square feet of vacant commercial real estate in the country. And then obviously with COVID, we all know the situation. So we're glad to continue doing this and continue getting inspiration from people like yourself and other programs.
Good stuff. I was just curious. I think, Evan, as you explore this app, one of the things you'll find out that's pretty amazing is stuff that could only be accomplished sometimes year to year from a conference or from a networking situation is now being explored and collaborated and connected on a day-to-day basis because of all the wonderful collective knowledge that comes through on the app. So I think that's one of the most exciting things about this. But that's what I love about the world of real estate, is when something unique or cool is being done in one part, is being able to see how that can be applied, especially with meaningful intention or strategic intention somewhere else in your own neighborhood or in your MSA, wherever that's at. So thanks. Sorry guys, I just popped in towards the end, but that's really cool. I'm going to check this out. Evan, if you'll back channel me on this, or either by my DM, kind of more about like if you guys have a website or link or something like that, I'd like to check it out. So thanks,
Sure.
Tamika and Stephen and Paul, for hosting us today.
That's
Love to.
Definitely.
those are great comments, Shane. Thank you very much, and Evan, thank you so much for your comments today. Michael, did you have something else to add before we jump?
Yeah,
Sure. I
I got something to say.
just want to say, for those of you down here in the Miami area, I was looking at a lot of different profiles, and so our audience is certainly getting broader and broader from around the country. But for those of you in the Miami area, on November 2nd, from 5 to 7, the Miami Commercial Realtors, IREM, and CCIM are doing a networking event at the Doral Top Golf from 5 to 7. And so if you'd like to come and meet some of us face to face and shake some hands and have some food and drink and play some golf games, you're welcome to come join us. Check out some emails or reach out to anybody up here on the panel, myself, Stephen, Tamika, Paul, Jennifer, Kevin. Will put you in touch and tell you about a great networking event coming up real soon. So that's the last thing I got.
Hey, Michael.
Sure.
JM is my co-founder of Dream Team, and we're the ones that do a lot of structured content stages. Tamika knows who he is. And actually, my first trip to Miami in over a decade was to go meet Jam in person because we were doing so much on Clubhouse together. So, Tamika, you should reach out to JM. He was an owner's rep for a long time on JLL, did a lot of the skyline work there in New York City, Chrysler Building, all that. But he's been doing stuff in Miami for the last 6 or 7 years. So we have a whole group of people that we've connected with online and offline through Clubhouse in Miami. So, Michael, maybe back channel Tamika and I, and we'll try to connect you with Jam and see if some of them can get out there because, a lot of, he's really both on Clubhouse, online and offline. That New York to Miami connection has just become stronger and stronger. So, might be a great thing for them to tap into. So, I'll just throw that out there real quick.
Absolutely. Miami is considered the sixth borough of New York. So we'd love to meet people from New York anytime. Come on down.
I couldn't
Art
Exactly.
believe it
Basel.
down there. I hadn't been to Miami in 10 to 12 years. I couldn't believe what it had become. It's unbelievable.
You won't even recognize the skyline, and what we have, the growth that we've had in the last few years has been phenomenal and amazing. And literally like 1,000 people are moving down here every week or two. It's crazy. So come on down and check out all these new projects.
Can I say, Evan, I'm going to finish the last thing I wanted to say earlier. I don't know if you know, but I'm with Douglas Elliman, and I would definitely want to get you in touch with our president, Jay Parker, because we're actually sponsors of Art Basel. And I think that he will probably take some interest in having a conversation with you.
Glad to, and we did have some Douglas Elliman partnerships previously with the Art Fort Lauderdale Art Fair on the Water. We would do with luxury waterfront homes that were for sale that we made art galleries and exhibits only accessible via boat, and we're glad to continue conversation and talking with you guys and partnering. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody tuning in, sticking around this long. I'm glad you found value or interest in the conversation. If you didn't catch, this is my first Clubhouse, so this is amazing, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And Paul and Alexa Rosario, old friend of mine, was the one that connected us with Paul, and I just want to thank her for making that connection. You guys
Yeah,
definitely appreciate the
definitely.
questions and
This
glad
is
to discuss further offline.
And yeah, Kevin Perciali, who popped in here earlier, he knows that I'm a longtime art collector, and it's funny you guys talking. I'm having flashbacks of the first time I paid for art insurance. So that's a whole interesting conversation. Art insurance, it's not easy to find, but yeah, it was really great to have you. These are the type of innovative topics that we want to have. Those of you that are not members or follow us or follow our president and Tamika, please follow. We have more conversations about innovative ways to impact communities and make money. Tamika, did you have some final thoughts? And yes, Shane, we'd love to continue to connect with you.
No, have any final thoughts at this time.
Tamika's on
This was a
Tamika's
great
on auto tune.
conversation. Thank you so much, Evan. And you did an awesome job on your first Clubhouse.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, everybody.
So,
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, same time. Please join us.
Yes, so yes, I was driving today. I had to get through this traffic today. But no, Evan, thank you so much. This is very interesting. I really did learn a lot. Um, yes, it's really good.
So, Evan,